Okay, as promised from earlier today, a couple of you guys had questions and even had questions after class about how to do the back side or the bottom side of this part. So I just wanted to do a quick video and give you two options of doing some things to get the bottom side of this part milled. I'm just really going to focus on the stuff that we haven't already done. So I'm not milling around the outside. One of them I'm milling the top of it with the face mill, but I won't do that with the other part of it. So this is just a couple of options. It's not the only ways to do it, but so what I did is I created a bottom side option 1 that has a face mill, and then for milling around the next level, that'd be this section here that is about 110 thousandths lower than the top of the part. If you'll notice, I went ahead and set my X0, Y0, Z0 down in this corner because this is finished part. So we milled all of this to size on our first side, so I created that as my datum point for the second side. So now when I flip it over, it should nest down into that corner, into the vice stop, whatever I have, and then I can go from there. So those will all be finished dimensions. So you'd mill around the outside of the part using a 2D contour. Then I went in and did a 2D adaptive for the part. And so in the 2D adaptive, I'm going to come in and use a 5/8 end mill. You can use a couple of different options on that. You could go with a 1/2 inch 2 flute. I just used a 5/8 because we had already used the 5/8 from before. And I chose my selected areas. This screen's a little bit smaller, so I'll have to kind of do some zooming around. So I just highlighted these 4 areas that I wanted to cut. It knows in the adaptive that there's a wall, that there's a separation here, that there's some low spots here, and I don't want to try to get those. So I selected my area, I selected the silhouette, the tool outside boundary, and I don't have to worry about any orientation. I went from the stock, that's for rest machining, that's really not applicable here. The rest of this stays pretty well straightforward. I went in here. I can do some area, stock to leave, some extra finish passes, machine cavities if I want to, I don't here. Use some slot clearing. You guys play around with this. And then however I want to finish this part out. And so, I can helix down, I can not do that if I don't want to. And then that'll take care of the milling of this section right here. So that's I feel like is a pretty good option of doing that. There's another way of doing it that I'll show you here in just a minute. I don't have it on the screen, but I'll make it as I do this bottom side. So adaptive is what I use for that. So I go over here into this 3D milling for adaptive for that. So same thing I did, I went in and did the center slot. And I just did that as a 2D contour. Or I'm sorry, I did that as a pocket. So that's just a pocket. Now, the downfall of this is since it's broken up into a couple of sections, you got a section here, a section here, and a section here, then you'll have these 4 sections, you end up with 7 pockets. Now you can do 3 and then the 4 together, and that'll be okay. That's fine to do that. So I broke mine up as 1 pocket, being the center slot, took it down, did a multiple depth, and I'll just open it up. So that stayed pretty well. So you can see the highlighted section that I worked off of. Pretty well stayed the same there. I went ahead and used a finish pass in there. I can go in computer or I can go into control for my offset if I want to use cutter comp or not. I went multiple depths and then I'm kind of zigzagging down it. I left 2000, so I am going to make a finish pass through there. So that's a simpler programming way to do it. I don't know that it's the way that I would want to do it in long term. That's option number 2 that I've got for you guys. 4 pockets here, I did the same thing. This is just a pocket, and I went in and highlighted the 4 pockets. Did that. It knows that it needs to stay inside of these boundaries. Did the same thing, left like a thou or two as I went around it, and then it was good to go. So that one, well, let's do a simulation of just the bottom side, option 1. One face mill all the way across. This is the 5/8 end mill. This is a 3 flute end mill. And don't get way bent out of shape over the fact of the tool path looks funny. It really doesn't matter. Now you can see what it's doing is it's making this first slot. It's going to come down through there. This is the pocketing part of the program. First part of it's going to clear this out. This is okay because we've already cleared out these holes, so it's actually a pretty good little spot for it to do this. Now it comes over here and does the right side, then it'll do the left side. Multiple steps and multiple depths. You can change that however you want to. It also takes a finish pass as it goes around it. It's pretty tight in that pocket, so you know, you don't have a ton of room to move around in there. Option number 2 is going to be what I feel like is a little more straightforward machining, but it'll be a little bit more, you need to know the Inventor program just a little bit better to do it. So there's 2 different ways of doing it. Okay, so here we have a way to manufacture this part, a way to process this part with option number 1. If you go down to option number 2, it is not as much stuff on there. I just did this slot. And so what I did here is, this is a contour. Now the way that I get the contour is I just go back into the drawing. And I'm going to go into the model. And I'm going to do some sketching on it. And what I have to do is I have to find a surface to create sketch 6 and 7 on. That's what those are. So I went in and highlighted the bottom, and then I just created a line. So I did line from this point to this point, and then hit escape, rotated it around so that I could see it, and did line again from this point to this point. So, and then escape to turn that off. Then I finished the sketch. I went back into my cam tab and my cam pull down and rotate it back around just so I can see it. You notice I've got a bunch of X's here. Remember what I told you last time? Let's just go back and generate. Just go back and generate that, and it'll be good to go again. So then, as I go in, I just click onto that. I've got my setup the way that I want it. I go into my contour. Then I'm just going to select the contour sections that I want to do. What I did was just went down and I found these 2 lines in there, and what I did was I highlighted here and I highlighted here. Now, only thing I really had to be concerned about was which directions that my arrows were going. The machine doesn't know which side to cut on until you show it. So this line is connected to this arrow. This line is connected to this arrow. So in this, I went in, that stayed the same, changed a little bit in here. I used computer, you can use in control if you want to. Roughing pass, I did do a roughing pass in there. I probably should have changed my smoothing deviation. I left 1 thou in there, and then my finish pass will pick it back up. And then I can change my lead in and my step down and anything like that, or my entry if I want to. So I was pretty happy with that. I'll go back and regenerate that. And so let me show you what that looks like. That might be something that's it takes a little more work to do. But to me, it's probably more familiar with our normal machining that we would see if we were to handwrite it. Rough pass, finish pass down that side. Rough pass, finish pass down that side. So it does the bottom side of the slot, then it does the top side of the slot, or however you want to say that. So that way your slot's getting done in just 2 passes. It's a little cleaner. You can also do a multi-depth if you want to. I think I've got this one go ahead and going all the way down to the bottom. So that's a pretty slick way of doing it. I can also come in, if I wanted to just face mill in a certain section, I could do, I know that these areas are pretty small, so what I could do if I wanted to go here, make sure that that is an active part, and I can come in and do the same thing again. I can sketch, and I can do, let's get back up to model, and I can just get something active, pan it over, and then I like a little bit of isometric view so that I can see what's going on with it just a little bit. Anytime I want to just mill a straight line, so I could just go into the middle of this, finish that sketch, go back here to cam, and I could do a contour, I could do a face mill of just this line. I can do I can't do a face mill. I can do a 2D milling. I can trace this line with my 2-inch shell mill. Let me pick it back up. And so I can just trace that. So I would need to do a little bit of moving around with it, or find something that's a little bit bigger or smaller in size. But if I really wanted to just go in that direction, I can do that. I can extend out those lines too. So maybe I would scooch this over just a little bit to get in there, so it doesn't have to. I just snap to the middle of the line. You wouldn't have to do that. So if you really want to force your hand, or force the machine's hand to do a couple of different things, that's a good way to do it. So I could draw a couple of lines here if I wanted to. If I didn't like the fact that it was face milling all the way across it, because it wouldn't have to, you could just mill across it with the face mill going kind of in the Y direction, and then just take this out with the mill. There's several options of how to do it, and I'll give you guys the freedom to do that. So the first side of the part you guys seem to have down pretty good. This was the side that had a little bit of trouble. Don't be afraid to try some different things, to go out and look for some different options. In this, I don't know that on this particular part that there's one definitive way to do it the best. There's a lot of parts that there's one definitive way to do it the best, but I think this one could be done a couple of different ways. All right. So that helps, should help give you a little bit of clarity to the bottom of the part. So go ahead and get that one finished up and submitted, and I'll create some more videos for the next couple modules.